Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, and welcome to this horror movie review for day 28 of my 31 Days of Halloween Horror series. So today we're going to jump back into the 80s and take a look at a B horror movie from the 80s, which was a first time watch for me. I haven't seen this movie before until now, but I do have a very nice copy of it, and that is from 1988, Night of the Demons. So yeah, I have the Scream Factory Blu-ray DVD combo and collector's edition pack. A whole bunch of special features there. If you guys want to pause, you can see what it has. I watched a couple of interviews and stuff. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool set of special features. So yeah, Night of the Demons from 1988. Let's just go ahead and get into it here with my review. So Night of the Demons is a 1988 American supernatural horror film directed by Kevin S. Tenney, written and produced by Joe Augustine. The plot follows a group of high school students who throw a party inside an isolated funeral parlor on Halloween night. While attempting a seance, they accidentally release a demon locked in the crematorium that begins to possess them one by one. So, basically, the film opens. You have teenage outcast Angela Franklin and her best friend Suzanne, who are throwing a party at Hull House, a mortuary abandoned from its gruesome past and rumored to be cursed by evil spirits. On the way there, Stooge, Helen, and Roger drive past an elderly man who is carrying apples and razor blades. When Stooge taunts him by showing his when Stooge taunts him by showing his buttocks out the passenger window, the elderly man curses at them and says they'll get what they deserve. Ooh, foreshadowing. Judy Cassidy and her boyfriend Jay Jansen pick up their friends Max and Franny for the party. When they arrive, Judy's ex-boyfriend Sal Romero crashes the party. They start the party by dancing, but the radio dies out. Angela then holds a seance as a party game, but Helen screams when she sees a demon sudden in the mirror foreshadowing her demise, and the mirror falls to the ground in pieces. The group suddenly hears thuds below them, and the demon frees itself from the crematorium it was sealed in to possess a distracted Suzanne. The group searches around the house, and the possessed Suzanne forcefully kisses Angela for the demon to manifest in her too. So yeah, that's the setup and the premise for Night of the Demons, the opening to the movie. As far as the cast goes, we have Kathy Podwell as Judy, Amelia Kincaid as Angela Franklin, William Gallo as Sal Romero, Elvin Alexis as Roger, Linnea Quigley as Suzanne, Lance Fenton as Jay Jansen, Hal Havens as Stooge, and Allison Barron as Helen, or Allison Barone as Helen, Philip Tanzini as Max, and Jill Terashady, Terashada. Oh boy, butchering it. Jill Trasha is Franny. So yeah, that's the setup, the premise, and the cast for Night of the Demons. Um, I like this movie. I don't love this movie, if that makes sense. So I don't know. It just didn't blow my skirt up as much as some other '80s movies, even that I've watched in this series, like The Blob and certainly The Return of the Living Dead. That being said, it still definitely has some good merits to it. It's good. So let's just go ahead and get into my review for Night of the Demons. So, starting with the pros, like a lot of '80s movies, you have to start with the practical makeup effects, and they're really good in this movie. A really effective demon look to those who become possessed by the demon. The look is really creepy and believable. Has some really good makeup effects there. Also, the Halloween atmosphere and setting is really good and enjoyable in this movie. Being set in a mortuary. It's kind of a unique, well, not necessarily unique. There's been other movies that have done that, but it's a good setting for a horror movie, certainly, especially in the '80s. And this movie definitely has an effective Halloween feeling and vibe to it. Obviously, the movie takes place on Halloween itself, so this is a good movie to watch this time of the year. It's another movie I could see watching in the month of October in or around Halloween for sure. You got the costumes, you got the creepy haunted house vibes. You've kind of got all those Halloween props and all those sort of Halloween vibes going on in this movie. So it's very effective in that standpoint. As far as some standouts in the movie, I think both Leanna Quigley and Amelia Kincaid really gave solid performances in this movie for what they were given with how their characters were written. I thought they both did a really good job selling the possession of their characters, demon possessions, and having a good contrast from their characters when they're normal, but the beginning of the movie towards when they become possessed. It was I thought it was a pretty believable transition, and as I said, they both do a really good job in their roles. The movie also has pretty good cinematography and camera work within the house that they're in. The use of shadow and light, the overall camera effects is pretty effective. It's a pretty good looking movie, especially for a B horror movie from the '80s. Um, it has though it that this movie definitely has those '80s cheesy vibes, which makes for a fun and pretty entertaining watch. It has a pretty high rewatchability factor because of that. Definitely a cheesy '80s movie. It has pretty good blood and gore effects, especially when one of the characters gets their tongue bitten off by one of the other characters. That part really stood out to me, just from the blood that's seeping out of one of the characters' mouths afterwards. And then obviously it's as an '80s horror movie. This another one that has a really good '80s soundtrack, good '80s score and music in this movie. It's definitely a very '80s musical score and musical cues that are used in this movie. So really enjoyed that as well. That's another thing that really stood out as far as a pro goes. As far as cons go, um, there are. This is a pretty typical group of. It's a pretty cliche group of teenagers, cliche characters. Like you have the big rough and tumble tough guy that's maybe not the sharpest tool in the drawer. You have the too cool for school, too cool for everyone kind of slick guy. You have the quote unquote good girl, final girl. You have the sort of slutty easy girl. I probably don't have to tell you what who portrays that character in this movie. We've kind of seen it all before, and so there's really not much to the setup. The first 20 to 30 minutes of this movie, we're introduced to all these pretty cliche and unremarkable characters, frankly. Um, Also, I have to say the sound and the voices of the demons weren't all that effective for me, especially when comparing and contrasting to some other '80s demon movies or possession movies. The Evil Dead from 1981 is the one that really stands out to me. That was really creepy and scary with the sound and the voices of the demons. In this movie, meh, it really just kind of took me out of it a little bit. It wasn't that effective. Sounded kind of ridiculous at times, to be honest, if I'm being honest with you. Not as effective as I said, like of the Evil Dead and even some other movies, demon and possession movies just in the '80s. I really didn't care about most of the characters, with the exception of Suzanne and Angela, who, as I mentioned in my prose, I thought they were both portrayed well by the actresses, and I thought their characters were kind of interesting and engaging. The rest of them are just kind of there, kind of cliche. Even Judy as our final girl, I thought was pretty weak and uninteresting. Kind of disappears also for a pretty good chunk of this movie, as well as she's locked in a certain room for plot contrivance and convenience. So yeah, that didn't work for me. I will say that the actress that played Judy, Kathy Podwell. Obviously, I know her best from Dallas. She was on the last 3 years, 4 years of that show, Dallas. Um, the primetime drama series with Larry Hagman and Patrick Duffy. She played Callie in that show towards the end of its run. And so that's really the only other thing I've seen her in, frankly. So it was interesting to see her in a horror movie. But yeah, her character was just so cliche and you know, I, I don't mind her as an actress, but some of her delivery as well for some of her lines kind of took me out of it. They're just not really that believable, to be honest with you. The story and the narrative isn't all that strong either in this movie. It's kind of stuff we've seen before, where we have a group of teenagers going somewhere that they shouldn't go, doing something that they shouldn't do, like a séance for plot and horror conveniences, as I'll call it. It's just kind of weak and it's just kind of repetitive to other movies that we've seen before. So Yeah, that's what I've got for my review. I know it sounds like I'm being probably too hard on this movie for a lot of you. I do have to keep in mind it is a B horror movie, an 80s cheesy horror movie set on Halloween. There are a lot of things I like about this movie, and I'm glad that I have this copy of it, the Scream Factory edition of it. It's just not the strongest 80s horror movie I've seen. Even the strongest demon movie I've seen in the 80s. That's all. It doesn't mean that I hate the film or anything. I certainly don't. There's enough good above average stuff about this movie that it will be a rewatch for me for if not every Halloween, certainly every other year. So I'm going to give this movie a 7 out of 10. I enjoy it. I like Night of the Demons from 1988. I think it's effective enough for what it is. Definitely not perfect, as my review would probably lend you to believe, but 7 out of 10 for Night of the Demons. I really do like Leanna Quigley in this movie. She's obviously in a lot of horror movies throughout the entire 80s. In fact, she's like an 80s, if you want to say, Scream Queen legend. That's definitely warranted, and I think this is one of her better performances, frankly, in any of the '80s movies that I've seen her in. So I wanted to mention that little tidbit. I think she's probably the best character and the best gives the best performance. As I said, her and Amelia Kincaid in this movie. So just wanted to hit on that again. But 7 out of 10 for me for Night of the Demons from 1988. Go ahead and comment down below if you guys think I'm being too hard on this movie. If you like it more than I do, less than I do, about the same. Comment down below why not. Please hit the like button and the little notification bell down below so you don't miss any of my upcoming reviews for this series. And please be sure to hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed already down below to my channel so you don't miss any of my great horror content for the rest of this year and into next year. So that's my review for Night of the Demons for day 28 of my 31 Days of Halloween horror series. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope everybody's enjoying the Halloween and fall harvest season here. And stay scared. Bye.